folks, Dave here, and welcome back to my Minutemen prison build here at Thicket Excavations, where today, as you guys can see, we're going to be going down into the prison itself to do a bit of building. I just always like starting off with the light tower, because that looks just pretty ominous up there. Today, we're going to be working on the primary prisoner housing. You guys remember a while back we worked on some of these structures right here, which are the quote-unquote upper class prisoner areas. Really, it's just the prisoners who've been here the longest and work their way to the top of the food chain. They get to be closest to actual sunlight. Today we're going to work on where you stay if you're a new prisoner or you haven't climbed the totem pole. Down here, past the factory, is going to be our primary prisoner housing, which will include, of course, a fighting pit of some kind. Got a few decorations down for that. Some skulls on poles. At the end of the day, things down here in the prison, well, they're just not pleasant. That includes where most people live. I imagine that as supplies are ferried down from this factory complex over here, the Minutemen require that most of it's used for building components and prefabs to be sent back to the surface, but the prisoners are allowed to have some of the scrap, maybe, to use for building some shelter down here. That's where some of this stuff would have come from. Perhaps some of these caravans would have been dumped into the flooded version of the quarry when the raiders still had control. But then other stuff like these shacks would have been built with those supplies provided by the Minutemen. I've been going through preparing for this Let's Build by adding a lot of detail around back already. We've got a bunch of these platforms that I've loosely laid out here, including some shacks up here. I wanted to make use of as much of the stonework here as we can. I'm going to imagine that somebody's going to have a mattress up under this piece of bridge walkway here. And everywhere you guys look, I'm trying to find a unique way to add a little bit of interest where someone could be using some part of this shelter area as their own personal shelter, like this guy up here. He's got a little nook tucked away. We're just getting started though, so let's go ahead and go into build mode, and I'll show you guys what else I have in mind for this almost homeless camp shelter area here at the bottom of the prison. What we're going to work on first, as I continue working on this prisoner housing section, is actually going to be this side over here. I'm going to use the thematic and practical mod, which has these cool looking foundation pieces, and we're going to fit a couple of them just like that. So I've gone through here to create some interesting shapes for our shacks. Now I've heard that it's actually hard to find thematic and practical for download anymore. I think the author might have removed it, is what I've heard, but I still have it installed, so I'm going to keep using it for now. Almost fell right into the fire there. Just put that one there for a second to climb back up. That will complicate things if I decide to release this settlement as a settlement blueprint, or if I'm able to release it as a settlement blueprint, because you guys won't be able to import stuff from a mod that you don't have, and if you can't download that mod, well, that makes things more complicated, right? But thematic and practical is just too cool of a mod not to use here for those unique shack shapes. Get some light here so we can see what we're doing. You guys are probably going to be watching a version of this video that I've brightened artificially, because while I'm very okay with it being dark lighting for the tour, you know, for just cinematic effect, I know it'll be hard for you guys to see if it's super dark as I'm building. Aren't there some stairs? Yeah. They go that way. How about the ones that go that way? Oh, that's perfect. Almost perfect. This will let us have some very unusual wall shapes. Let's go through and get some just traditional staircases here. Wood. And then stairs. Maybe even give it a slight amount of tilt, too. Would not be great engineering down here. So that's going to give us a couple of tiers that we can use to add some shack detailing. And then we're going to have a lot of tent canopies to create that almost homeless camp or apocalypse survival camp feel. Lots and lots of fabric and not just the shack pieces. Very important. I imagine too that part of the reason why only some people live in the nice shacks, quote unquote, the nice shacks, is because of how long it would take to actually get enough resources to build some of these. Because if the Minutemen are sending supplies down for you to build prefabs with, they're not going to want you using a whole bunch of it for building a bunch of junky shacks to live in. You're going to have to earn those supplies. Maybe for good behavior, you'll get a supply of wood for working on your shack that you can take out of your monthly allotment. That at least makes the most sense for me in my head lore of how some of these structures would have been built down here over the last couple of years of the Minutemen building and running this prison. We got some rough rooftops there. So that's going to be kind of a premium fighting rink side shack right there. Pretty good sized. I'm going to give them a canopy just for effect. Because it looks cool, basically. Let's get some of these other pieces up here. Let's use the small wall piece that has just the door frame. That way, I can put the door on the far left just like that. I think that might be another back wall section right here. Yep. Just like that. I always forget that this has the really cool looking railings too. I haven't used these in forever. Love these. Now, of course, there wouldn't be a ton of railings down here. This is a shack town. Maybe just enough to not fall in the fire, perhaps? Probably just because if someone falls in the fire, you gotta get the body out. No one wants to do that extra work, right? Which wall is this? Okay, there we go. The shack doorway right there. Someone's got a little alcove going on. Gonna have someone's mattress under that overhang right there. Just getting the slight less draftiness of being underneath that shelter, perhaps. Gonna manually place one of these doorways like this. I mean, any space that's your own, right? They'd be wanting to make use of all of this space. So that's someone's little shack right there with the open door. Let's put one of the railings over here, perhaps. Just because the walkway got so narrow. Lean that one out some. Lean that one out some. Where did that industrial light go? There you are. Put that there for just a little bit of ambient lighting and perhaps a fire barrel over here somewhere for the walkway. I'm liking the idea of these like super tiny shacks where people are just making do with what they have, but it's still considered like an upgrade. It's like outhouse sized. Oh, speaking of which, I wonder how the toilets are going to work down here. Just for straight up like disease and health reasons, there needs to be some kind of solution. Even if it's just, I don't know, draining into the fighting pit maybe? Like I think it would have to be pretty close to the living quarters. And speaking of which, this alcove right here, I think might be a combination of one of the current areas being used for mining new stone, and just the absolute lowest tier of housing, where it's just going to be tarps and mattresses out in the open. So it's going to be top tier prisoners up top, top of the food chain, mid-range prisoners in the shack and caravan village with all the tarps that are going to be added in the streets, and then the absolute newest prisoners, or the most hated prisoners, over here in just the tarp city on the ground, where the rain's going to come in and get them. Not a lot of protection at all, and there's the idea. Okay, what was I doing? And there might just be some chairs and whatnot up here on the deck part. Thinking about a stairwell right here too. And then just have the single stair come down like that. That could work. Just to use some different shapes back and forth. It's looking good. Let's go back to our rooftops here while we're in G2M. Perhaps use a couple of these. Seeing they're not going to actually fit well, could be what we want. Yeah, like that gap right there. Let's do this though. Let's move that one over like that. Push it out some, because the gap should probably be away from where the rain could get in. So I'll leave a gap back here instead. Things not fitting correctly is kind of the name of the game here, guys. I think up here is going to be tarps, not shack pieces. Yeah, I'm liking how this is looking. You'll kind of come up here and really see how junky everything is. Oh, here we go. This is a unique piece right here with the door on the right side. Could be someone else's little alcove. Use this rounded piece right here on the top section. It's almost like a double-decker right here. Yeah, I like that. There's some railing style pieces. Don't think they're meant to actually be used as railing, but oh, they are actually. They actually snap. Gonna just fill in some of these gaps with cool looking pieces like that. It's fun to go full-on junky like this, because a lot of my Minutemen builds have progressed past the full-on junk stage, and it's a bit more organized in the construction. But here it can basically be as junky as my imagination wants it to be. I can make an excuse for it pretty easily. It's an underground prison, right? There was one piece that was like a porch almost. Yeah, thought that might be kind of cool, like they're trying to trap some of the heat from the fireplace. all kinds of visual interest. Yeah, that'll be tarps only up here. Maybe one wall section so that someone can get a bed up here. We'll come back and put some supports under that. That's going to be one dark alcove right there. But I like it. Got some bridges there. Here's some shack supports. Go ahead and put some back here before I forget about them. I think over here could use just a couple of supports too that are straight. Definitely needed some supports. Might be hard to see, but it's no excuse for a lack of immersion, right? Gotta have proper support systems. Not for safety, but because that's how physics work, even down here in the ramshackle prison. Okay. This needs some supports right here, but I'm gonna get them from a different category. Are we done with our shack pieces now? We've got our pipe house, our caravans, our couple of shacks now with rooftops. No rooftop here yet. Let's grab one there. I think we're almost done with shack stuff. Do this one like this. Leave a big old air gap on the edge. I almost want to just line toilets down right here with drainage systems. Just like outhouse style. I don't know, what do you guys think? It's just, for this balcony, I think it almost makes more sense to have toilets instead of like chairs or anything like that. And then what looks like an outhouse right here is someone's literally crappy house. I haven't decided yet, but I'm kind of leaning that way. You guys tell me what you think. Although I might decide before I finish recording for today. We'll see. This is looking pretty crazy. I think all of the tarps and stuff will really bring this to life. I'm going to do a quick save, and then we're going to go ahead and keep on trucking. I'm definitely having a lot of fun with this design, just because the prisoner's possessions are going to be pretty scant. They're not going to have a whole bunch of stuff. So the detailing of the inside of all these shacks is going to be, well, pretty bare bones as well. You'll have... Oh, I'm stuck now. There we go. You'll have, you know, hidden possessions and melee weapons and occasionally maybe a pipe pistol or something that they've squirreled away. But for the most part, you're not going to have tons of paintings and posters and stuff like that that is usually used for detailing a build. So I think a lot of the character of this part is going to have to come from the structure itself, the shape of the town, the lighting, and stuff like that. Which is why I'm going all in here, basically. Okay, before I leave thematic and practical behind for now, I'm going to place a couple of their cloth rooftops again. Oh, I'm out of cloth. Well, guys, guess I'm gonna make a trip to Diamond City. I'll be back. And we're back. Things have brightened up quite a bit here in the quarry, but down at the bottom of the pit here, it's still pretty gloomy. We've got some sunlight hitting just barely down here, but most of this area is in shadow for the majority of the day. I've just paused time to hold things in place and avoid crashes as I'm building. I have found that pausing time definitely helps with hard crashes that occasionally happen. You got so many mods going on at the same time, and of course, so much building far past what the game intended. Still pretty gloomy, but it looks pretty awesome. That plank is floating quite a bit there. Let's fix that. That's more like it. Okay. What was I even doing? Oh, I went to go get cloth. That's right. Talk about completely derailing my train of thought there. I'm already pretty scatterbrained while building, so you guys are well aware. Yeah, we'll do some more of the traditional canopies instead of so many thematic and practical. So we got red ones, we've got green ones. I almost wonder what these would look like if I rotated them a bit, maybe? I think it looks pretty cool to have a tarp wall. Somebody could have their bed back here. And that even mostly hides the wonky bottom of it right there. Okay. I'll leave it be for now. Let's keep placing some tarps elsewhere before I spend all night on one thing. So double yellow with the poles. This still is not quite the tarp city I had imagined. So I'm going to keep on placing. I really do think that the primary purpose of these would be to retain some of the heat, seeing the ceilings just so high. These are going to clip some, but I think they'll look okay. Yeah, that's fine. They just ripped holes in them to get them mounted, right? Now we're talking. It's looking pretty good. And of course, I'm going to use those extra raider tents as well. Let's add a few of those down next for atmosphere. Homemaker, structures, miscellaneous, raider, and super mutant. The giant pole. Skulls on it. Very welcoming. Oh, I thought that said I had 300 steel left. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I am not going back to Diamond City twice in one video. Gotta keep people from escaping the fighting pit, right? While we're here. Put some spikes in. And of course, I'm sure that when a fight is actually being organized, everyone's there to push you back in. Want some of them coming through the walls, though. I just hopped in and can't get out, can I? Well, that staircase is going to have to go. What was I even doing? Tarps. Man, I do get distracted easily. This is probably the primary problem with having so many awesome mods installed that just lets you build so many of the game's objects, is you can get lost building awesome stuff and forgetting what you were doing. Yeah, I don't actually like that canopy right there. Let's do this one instead. Much better fit, I think, for that back corner. Lighting's looking awesome. Look at the fire barrel casting light on the top of the tent right there. Awesome. This felt kind of off here. Let's do a canopy like this instead. That one fits great for the ramp down to the fighting pit. This guy needs a staircase for his little hobbit home right there. Tent poles everywhere now. It's getting hard to get around. Okay. while we're here, thankfully I do have plenty of concrete still. Get those supports going. Is that one okay? Some of these I'm going to add cinder blocks just for effect, to kind of ground the bottom of those poles. Not all of them, but some of them. This section right here will be bigger than most of the vanilla game's settlement build areas, at least as far as what I think of at launch, like people building, you know, a couple of shacks and stuff like that for their survivor. I mean, even my initial settlements were a couple of rooms and houses. This is just going to be so detailed. It's just one part of such a massive build. Thanks to the more sparse detailing, this one, I think I've said it already, but I think this one might outscale Sanctuary. I mean, just look at how many Let's Build episodes we've had and how much I'm still building on it. And even once the Let's Build episodes are complete, I'm probably going to be building on my own for quite a while. It's going to get kind of crazy. I mean, if it hasn't already, right? Okay, definitely time for a save. Next up, guys, let's go through and add some additional supports for a couple of these areas that still need them. So wood, let's go to metal and miscellaneous. Got this metal post right here. Oh, one of these big raider tents was floating. Yeah, this one right here. So that needs its own base support, like that. That worked out. Now for this small shack over here, I feel like it's almost too small of a space. While we're here in metal, what's a cool something I could do? Maybe like this. One of these scrappy pieces like that instead. But that'll just wall it in some. Opens up the walkway down below too. Oh, getting some frame rate hitching there. I've probably been digging through too many submenus in the workshop mode. Might be time for a game reboot before we look at, I think perhaps detailing one of these shacks with you guys to get some opinions on how detailed they should be. Also, the same question I had for the upper prisoner areas, guys. Do we do just different kinds of curtains? Or would some of these houses actually have doors? I mean, at this point, we're so far below ground, the Minutemen are never going to see what's going on down here. Unless they're coming down in, as you guys have suggested, you know, power armor and riot gear to just put down a riot. They're not going to come down here for inspections. They're going to come down here for, you know, shutting down a full-on riot, and that's about it. Also, you know, none of my toilets are very junky looking. I think I have a mod that unfortunately replaces the super junky toilet with a nice one. I'm not sure which mod does it either. It was one from like 2015. I know that Thematic and Practical has some furniture that might work, because one of them's a toilet. So these could be just toilets that have like a removable lid or something instead of seats. Their original purpose. Oh, gotta watch my ceramic there too. So I'm just experimenting here with that idea of having this be like toilet row up here. Oh yeah, that could definitely be one of the really awful jobs for the prisoners. I have an idea for this, guys. So what if there was a bathtub down here with piping systems for the outhouse style toilets that just goes down to the bathtub, and as a punishment, your duty for the week might be to empty the latrine. That feels very prison-like, apocalyptic prison-like. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Where's a good piping detail? Structures, metal, miscellaneous again, perhaps? We got some piping down here, I'm pretty sure. This cool wire mesh can go down up here to add some visual detail. You guys might have noticed that I already had some of the planks already down here. This area is just looking so cool. I'm really happy with how this is going. I had thought about having some spotlight towers down here, but again, if the prisoners are mostly on their own, it just wouldn't make sense, I think, to have so much electricity and maintenance for spotlights. And I think the atmosphere being kind of dim and dark works really well too. Do we have piping? That's the hardcore version right there with the pressure pump attached. Well, here we go. There's one big pipe we can use for underneath the toilets. That's good for the crossways one. Now we just need the exit chute. And that is perfect. That bathtub as close as possible. I mean, hey, it's not an exact science, right? You'd be in charge of hosing it down afterwards too, I would imagine. So what do you guys think of that for the latrine setup right there? I kind of like it. So these houses on the edge would be not super desirable, even being closer to sunlight because of the bathrooms. Well, the latrines, really. Down here, being further away from the sun and further away from the latrines would actually be an advantage. Okay, well, it's getting kind of stuttery. I'm going to restart the game and do just a little bit of that detailing on one of these last areas here. So to finish things off for today, guys, here's your questions. What do you think of the latrine system with, again, some poor prisoner having to do that as their job if they're truly hated down here? What do you think of the door question, once again, for down here? Should they have doors? Should they have curtains or sheets or just basic stuff like that? Should there be a mix of both? Perhaps a few doors and then mostly sheets, or mostly doors and a couple of sheets? I don't know. I'm still going back and forth on that one. But I think to end things for today, I'm going to go back to thematic and practical and to the fantastic scavenger furniture. And we're going to detail just a couple of these areas. Bunk beds, couple beds, sleeping bags. I'm imagining the guy up here would just have a sleeping bag. He's got a bowl of rice and some water there. I'm going to go out to Homemaker for a second and over to Power and Miscellaneous Lights. Give him a single candle. So what else might our prisoners have? Looking at some just very threadbare possessions down here. He's got some food and water, sure, his rations. But perhaps he would have... Let's think this through. Maybe just a single shelf of some kind. Or a wall decoration, maybe. See, he has some actual wall space up here. Here we go. This guy's got a fish packing plant diagram. And we'll give him some scribbles. Seeing he has this cool alcove to himself for some wall decorations. outside of that, though, what else might he have? Not much, I would imagine. Let's bounce over to OC Decorator and look real quick. A jug. That's a big jug. Oh, man. All kinds of household objects, but how many of those would actually be down here? Flowers. Not likely. Oh, the industrial grade cleaner. I am going to put one of those over here for the guy who has to clean the latrines as his job. Industrial strength and standard. Ready to go. Here we go, fancy hairbrush. This will be this guy's, perhaps this woman's, prized possession. They would keep it probably hidden away in their sleeping bag when they're not here. I also wanted to see what bed might fit in this alcove. Let's give this guy an actual bed, and going back to creative clutter for a second. Miscellaneous wall decoration. I think like one decorative object per person for some of these guys might make sense. Oh, and here's those curtains. So for his bunk, let's give him the love curtains. Definitely no door for this one. This is really just a cloth-walled sleeping cubby. Yeah, I don't like any of those wall decorations, actually. We already gave one guy a note. Let's give this guy something different. Now, I do like how the curtains makes this look, so let's give him the tarot reading. That fits with kind of the cloth walls. Looks like some kind of fairground tent almost. So this guy, or this woman, is going to be our fortune teller for the prisoners. Gotta get those extra rations somehow, right? Take them from people who want their fortunes read. And again, we're just detailing a couple of these areas for today because I want to hear from you guys what you think of how this is going. Oh, that's cool. It lights up the tarp walls a bit too. I'm stuck on the pole. So that's the fortune teller corner. I feel like they need a couple of... Oh, I know. Candles down the stairs. And I will actually, if this is the fortune teller room, place that wreath on the wall too. I guess it would have to be the dead one because it wouldn't last long down here. But a wreath just seems appropriate for a fortune teller's corner of the prison. This is almost going to be like a society all its own down here, as you guys can tell. Awesome. That adds a bunch of character to the back corner here. And then whoever's going to be back here, let's give them a couple of crappy mattresses. There we go. And this guy is going to have his sleeping bag kind of on the pile of rubble, but nice and close to that fire barrel. So perhaps worth the discomfort of sleeping on top of the rubble to be close to the fire. So there's 2 beds back there. Guys, that's going to just about do it for today. I know I talked about thematic and practical when I first started detailing, but I ended up getting creatively inspired by those back edges first. Going back to thematic and practical just for a second, I'll show you probably a good bit of the furniture that I'm going to use will be stuff like this. The really cool looking beds and whatnot. Made of junk materials. A mix of that and the traditional furniture I think would be a great fit for down here. Somebody down here would be selling extra space in the bunk bed, stay in the real caravan with a hot light on, and actually have some heat. Okay, guys, I've got to call it here because I could keep on building for hours upon hours, which is, of course, what these settlements require. But for now, that was some really great progress. I think the only downside to not having spotlights down here is it would just be cool to see them rotating across this space, but the dim lighting works very well as well. For now, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all next time.